cool. I actually like Buddhist. It's kind of cool. It's very laid back and accepting.
It is very laid back.
Yeah, you gotta be, man.
well, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Such a big success.
Yeah, well, here anyway.
And I heard you came up with the idea making this film 12 years ago, which was even before Braveheart.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what urged you to make this film now?
Well, things usually incubate with me for a long time. So all that time, I guess it was just, a process of maturation until I got to a point where I felt that I had to commit it to celluloid. So, but the story was in my head for a very long time because I was raised with this, story. As most people with Christian backgrounds are raised with this story. This is the central story of their belief, is the whole notion of sacrifice by the man God to atone for all the wrongs that we engage in. So it's that being a central theme of Christianity. It took 12 years to kind of like visualize it.
Well, then I heard that you were sort of suicidal. I don't know if you said that or not. Because of
Well, people go through times in their life when they get to a point where they're offered everything that life has to offer. You're right at the top of your game, and even no matter what it is, even if it's everything you could possibly have ever wished for, it's not enough. It's just not enough. It doesn't fill the void inside, you see. So that I think one can become very jaded with life, and you can get into a place where you're kind of hopeless about it and says, is this all there is? Why do I want to hang around here? This place sucks. I want to get out. I don't want to stay here. I'm too chicken to get out. So, it becomes actually, a place where you have to reach inside yourself and find another reason to go on. And I kind of hearkened back to a time in my life where I learned about all these things, and it was part of my life more. And I departed from it, because it's easier to get caught up in the secular world of, work and, the pleasures of life and all these kinds of things. You can get overwhelmed by these things, and it's not the answer. It just isn't the answer. You have to feed your spirit, which is...
So making this film is sort of looking inside of yourself, too.
Yeah, to a degree, of course, because through that experience, I guess, it does actually shift the focus back onto yourself as I visualize it, because one has to understand, like as from a Christian perspective, that the entire sacrifice that was willingly undertaken by this one man, who was also God, was to atone for the ills that we set into motion, to atone for the transgressions we commit, the wrongs, And people are very flawed. I mean, they're full of faults, and there's nobody perfect, and we all need a little help. So this was it.
So Japan is mostly Buddhist. Well, we are very free. I mean, you can be anything you like to.
Sure.
And do you think it matters to understand this film, or this is art piece, so it's sort of beyond the religion, to whatever you believe in,
right.
The film speaks to them?
I think, I believe that no matter what your belief is, that you find it hard not to be moved by this. I think, I've crafted it as well as I can, image-wise. I've drawn on all the classic images and tried to inject something new and more realistic into the classic images, and find the reality of what it must have been like. The books that it's taken from are, I believe them to be true. I haven't strayed too far from those books, although I've enhanced the visceral aspect of it, what one sees. And I think I don't think it's necessary to be a Christian to get something from it. However, I think what's happened here, and it's been a very interesting phenomenon, is that people who aren't even believers have actually gone and picked up the book afterwards to check it out, because it's only a small 12-hour piece of what's essentially a much larger story. Like the entire ministry is there, and we only sort of hint at that. So, I don't think it's necessary to be a Christian to appreciate the story, the sacrifice, the film, and to actually be moved and involved in it. I mean, it's a hard thing to watch. There's a lot of suffering that goes on.
Yeah.
So.
It is actually.
But the game shows in Japan are like that.
Oh,
people actually suffer on
yes,
on television.
Right. Yes, and it's very violent too.
Yeah.
So, well, two people died while watching this film. So
Two people died while watching it?
this film.
Yeah.
Heart attack or whatever.
Oh, yeah, some lady had a heart attack, yes.
Yeah. So is that, do you think it's the power of religion? They sort of, someone said this film is not a film to watch, it's an experience. The film grabs you into the film. And so those people, do you think it's just an experience of this religious thing?
It isn't really like any film I've seen, and I didn't intend it to be. It kind of does cross the line a bit, so that you're not actually watching a film. If you are drawn in, hopefully, to a very visceral, sound, emotional experience. I've taken the language away from you. I've taken, it's got music and stuff with it. Some people, and fortunately, it's a minority. It's like 1% of people really hate it.
Yes.
And there's very few people in between, but most people I've spoken to are affected in a very positive way by it.
Yes, that shows that this how successful it is at the box office.
Yeah.
That people want to see it, and they are moved, and they talk about it, so more people go. But you put up your own money. It's 25 million or 30 million, I heard.
Something like
and
that.
When you put that kind of money, part of you wasn't it telling you like you might lose everything?
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
was it scary?
No.
It wasn't.
I never cared about money. I still don't. I never will. And that's probably the only good quality I have. I got a lot of bad habits, but I don't give a damn about money. I was happy when I didn't have it. I'm less happy with it. It doesn't matter. It's and nobody would finance it. That's the other thing. But I believed in the vision, of course. So I felt that in the absence of anyone coming to finance this picture or not believing in it, I had to jump in and fill the breach myself. And win or lose. And I didn't know. That's always a gamble. No one knows for sure whether something's going to work or whether you're ever going to get your investment back. But at that stage, I didn't care. I was really making it for myself.
That's great. I mean, what are you going to do with 360 million and getting more?
What am I going to do? Well, first I thought I'd get me one of those like thin TVs. I thought
I see. Okay,
maybe buy another pair of shoes. What do you think?
Okay.
Another pair of shoes for Venezuela.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, when Fox pulled out, what was your reaction? You didn't care?
No, I didn't care. They were never really on. I mean, I had a deal with Fox, but they didn't back the film. They didn't pull out. They didn't. I went and did it myself, and I bought it back because I had a deal. I felt obliged to show it to them first. Of course, they watched it, and they all backed away from it because they were scared because they thought it was a little controversial. And that's okay. They're allowed to do anything they want. It's a business decision. However, I believe that after it sort of started working at the box office, that Murdoch went around the top floor looking for a body to throw out a window, wondering why the hell they turned it down. And that's kind of, there's a slight satisfaction in knowing that somebody was going to get the chop for that. But they did manage to come in for some of the distribution in foreign territories afterwards, like in South America and places like that.
it's a big hit, but at the same time, there is a controversy over this film.
Sure, yes.
And have you ever felt physically threatened or physically dangerous?
Have I?
Yeah. As a result.
Well, anytime you're going to delve into areas like this, like religion, like people's, core beliefs, you're going to touch some nerves, okay? And this indeed did happen. However, a lot of it was manufactured, I think. A lot of it was, there are organizations that need to find a bad guy so that they can raise funds. And there were these, loose canon kind of like condemnations of the film from people who hadn't actually seen it, okay? They were already condemning it before they'd seen it. They behaved in a very underhanded manner. And, they made money because I was perceived to be some kind of threat, and the film was perceived to be some kind of hate crime, which of course it is not. And they are, quite simply, very wrong, and they've been proven to be wrong. Since it's been released, there have been no pogroms or any kind of violence or anything like that. In fact, it's promoted, churches are crowded again. It's promoted faith and understanding, which is what I hoped it would do, and I think what I knew it would do. It was really a very small group of naysayers with a very loud voice. And they've been proven wrong. Absolutely, 100% wrong. They will never apologize, although I dearly like one. It's not necessary. I forgive them in advance. And that's the message of the film, I think.
So you're not walking around with 20 bodyguards?
No. I have angels. You can't see them. And they got sawn-off shotguns and wings and halos all around me.
Okay. So you must have done extensive research about this last 12 hours of crimes.
I did, yes. Yeah, there's many.
And also, you have to use your imagination too to put the story together.
Sure.
And how did you take the balance of your imagination to put the story together?
Well, one looks at the accounts, and the accounts are the 4 books of the Gospel. Now they're called synoptic Gospels, or the first 3 are called the synoptic Gospels because it's kind of like a synopsis. It gives you very broad strokes of the ministry and the accounts of the sacrifice and the crucifixion and death and the resurrection. So that what is left is there's areas that can be filled in. I spend most of the time from the night before to the death, which is merely 12 hours. And to fill those things in, like what's a crucifixion really like? How do the Romans carry it out? Evidence from, say, like the Shroud of Turin, which they found with like how many whip marks on him. And why is that image even on that shroud in the first place? There's no real explanation for it. And it's from the right time and the right place. And then there's various other accounts, like there's a very good article called A Doctor at Calvary, and it talks about a doctor explaining what would happen if, with crucifixions and with scourgings and all this other kinds of stuff. So it was very interesting to sort of compile research as far as, the sequence of events that would come into play for something like this. Then, of course, there's my own personal kind of vision of these things. Not only is it my own vision or artistic vision of how something would look or how something occurred, but it's informed by 2 millennium of art. I mean, you've got paintings and sculptures and statues and all kinds of iconic 2-dimensional stuff, realistic stuff. It's been never ending. I mean, it's the greatest magnet for artists ever. I mean, more art has been devoted to this one subject, the crucifixion, than anything else ever, before or since. And it's so that I'm informed by that. I mean, one merely needs to go to Rome and just walk around and look at the paintings the Caravaggios and the Mantegnas and all these, just the artists, they just go on and on and on. And so I was informed by a lot of that stuff too. It just came from here and there, and it is what it is. And I think I tried to make a moving Caravaggio on film, like a moving painting on film. So, but that's what film is. It's, you know, the old filmmakers were Da Vinci, and he didn't have a camera, but he had a canvas and a proscenium, and he used to paint you a picture, just one frame. But fortunately, now we can do 24 frames a second, and sometimes even more.
Is that true? We can see your hand when the Christ, the right hand, the hand.
Yeah, the left hand.
Left hand.
Yeah.
Is that your hand who's nailing?
That's me. That's me sticking the nail in. Yeah. It's like, well, and everyone thinks, "Ooh, how symbolic." He's got a little shot in about how, you know, it's really his fault, all those sins and all that kind of stuff. Well, you know, I wasn't thinking that at the time. The fact of the matter is that the stand-in guy who was putting the nail in wasn't doing it right. So I said, "Here, give me that wrist thing," and I got some dirt on my hand. It's like this. How'd that look, fellas? Yeah, that's the way I want it, and it worked better that way. So it was really just for expediency, not that I wanted to, you know, throw any subliminal hidden messages in about my own spiritual convictions in there, but it was just a matter of director's impatience.
So you didn't want to act in this film at all? Is that because there was no role for you, or you just didn't want to do it?
No, well, there was really no role for me in it, and I also had I felt it was absolutely necessary to not be able to recognize any faces in there. That when you watch it, you're not saying, "Oh, there's, you know, there's Richard Gere, there's Denzel Washington, there's Mel Gibson." You know, the minute you start to recognize people, it takes you away from the reality of what I'm trying to sort of do, which is throw the audience into an experience that they can totally believe in. As soon as I bring my baggage in there, I mean, it's over. It's like, oh yeah, here he is, he's playing St. John. Whereas if it's just some schlep that you've never seen before, okay, that is St. John, or you can imagine that it is. It's like even Jim doesn't look like himself. You know, we altered Jim's face because he's a very good-looking man, Jim. But I felt that he was almost too pretty, in a sense. You know, he was almost too good-looking, so that we actually altered his appearance some to make him a little more rougher and more masculine and stuff. But and more Semitic, I think. So that he really looked like someone from back then, from that part of the world. So you don't really recognize any faces in there.
So were you asked to do St. Francis Assisi?
I heard St. Francis was a sissy, but I don't believe it. I think he was a pretty tough guy. No, no, I wasn't asked to do that.
I mean, you were asked to make a film about him.
I'm sure I'll get all that stuff now. I mean, every religious lunatic in the world is coming out with their little project now. Like, yeah, it's like I have to.
So what's your next project?
I have no idea.
Oh.
I just actually, you know what I did? I just, the night before last, I just finished filming and directing a sitcom on television. It's just this little sitcom, 25 minutes long, you know, with some guys getting some cheap laughs with a live audience, and you know.
That's a big difference.
It's a huge difference. It's a big change. So that variety is the spice of life, you know. But I'll do another film. I don't know when. So you have to find the inspiration. I mean, there's no point in devoting 2 years of your life to something that you don't feel anything for. So you have to make sure that going in, it's going to be something that's going to sustain your interest and feed your soul. Otherwise, you might as well jump out a window, right?
Well, one last question. Do you think about Academy Awards? This film is just dominating the whole industry right now.
Yeah.
And it is moving. It's not an entertainment movie. It means a lot, and it has a deep meaning.
It won't get any awards.
No? Why not?
Because it's not the kind of film that they want to give awards to. Won't get one. Won't even get nominated.
Okay, but you move people.
Trust me.
Okay, trust you. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
They'll give it to something that doesn't mean anything.
I get it.
It's a marketing exercise. Believe me. Trust me.
Okay.
Zero.
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 Well, I bet there will be couple. No?
Read my lips. Zero.
Okay, I trust you.
Trust me.
Thank
Trust me on this one. Yuki, trust me on this one.
Thank you. I will. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank